Hello students, my name is Arshpreet Kaur, Assistant Professor of English at Dashmesh Girls College, Patil. In this lecture, I'm going to talk about a poem which is prescribed to the students of second year Elective English. The name of the poem is The Trees and it is written by Phillp Larkin. So before getting started with the poem, I would like to talk about the poet. He was an English poet, born in the year 1922, and he received his higher education at Oxford University. Before Phillp Larkin became a mainstream poet, we had poets like T.S. Eliot, Ezra Pound, who produced poetry which had a very intellectual tone, in the sense that they used lots and lots of allusions. They used lots and lots of references which were not easily understood by the common readers. Their poetry was meant for a particular class of readers who were very well read and well educated. So poets like Phillp Larkin, they started a movement against this kind of poetry, whereas they produced poetry which was very simple and very ordinary. It was about ordinary subjects by using very ordinary and simple language. So when we will read this poem, one thing that we will notice is the language that has been used is very simple. The poem might appear to be very simple on the surface, but keep that in mind that it has a very deep and profound meaning underneath, which we as readers have to discover. So let's get started with the reading of the poem. There are 3 stanzas. Each stanza has 4 lines, right? So even before starting with the poem, the structure of the poem is sort of interconnected with the message that has been conveyed in the poem. The title, the name of the poem is The Trees. And when we think about the trees, what comes to, if you think about the trees, what comes to your mind? An image of a tree, the image of fruits, shade, life, greenness, fullness, vitality, youth, rejoicing, things like that. Some ideas, some connotations which are evoked by the very image of a tree. So, okay, I'll read the first stanza. The trees are coming into leaf, like something almost being said. The recent buds relax and spread, their greenness is a kind of grief. Right. So the trees are coming into leaf. We know that, we are very much aware with the common process how how trees, they shed their leaves every year, and every year they get new leaves, which symbolizes in a way that every year they become old by they have brown leaves and the leaves fall off, they are almost dead, and then they come back to life again. That means they get to live everything, they get to go through experiences in one single year. The kind of experiences which we human beings, we get to live only once. We are a child when we are born, we are a little child, then we become young, then we become adults, and then finally we grow old, and then we die. Death is inevitable. So if we take into account the life of a tree, which is not very similar to the life of human beings, that is the very primary observation made by the poet narrator. That's why he has used the word grief, because otherwise we would think that why the poet narrator, he is using this particular word grief in a poem which is about trees, and the trees are about fullness of life and greenness and greenery and all those kind of positive connotations. Because we as human beings, we have a tendency of comparing ourselves, our lives, with everything possible, be it animate, be it inanimate. So that is what it has been, a similar kind of objective has been presented to us by the poet in the very first stanza that we read here. He's trying to compare the life of human beings with the trees, that how the trees, they get this chance of renewal every year, but we human beings, no, we are not that lucky. All right, I'll read the second stanza. Is it that they are born again and we grow old? right? So it's a question that has been asked by the poet, more like a rhetorical question. No, they die too. Their yearly trick of looking new is written down in rings of grain. So here the question that has been posed by the poet narrator, he himself answers that question, that no, it is not true. Trees, they also grow old. How would you find out the age of the tree? You must have noticed when the people, they chop off the trunk, the trunk of the trees, you might have noticed some circles on the surface of the trunk. There is a circle within a circle. So those are the rings of grain, and if you count those rings, you might be able to figure out the age of the tree. This is entirely a scientific method of figuring out the age of the tree. That's called dendrochronology. So that is something additional. But here what you have to keep in mind is that trees, they also grow old, and what we see from the outside, that they are always young and fresh, that is not the case. What seems to us is not the reality. Behind that veneer of greenness and fullness, they are growing old. But that process of aging is more inwards. All right. Yet still the unresting castles thresh in full-grown thickness every May. Last year is dead, they seem to say, begin afresh, afresh, afresh. So, in the last stanza of the poem, the poet has used the poetic device of onomatopoeia, in which he evokes the sound of afresh, afresh, afresh. Through these words, he is trying to suggest a sound of the rustling of the leaves. How tree is able to start from very beginning every year. So there is a very subtle message that has been conveyed to us, to human beings, that sometimes in life we get stuck. We are not ready to move on. We want to stay in the misery, right? We do not want to get out of the problem. So by comparing ourselves with the trees, we can understand this very simple message, this very simple phenomena of life, that we human beings, even we have to start afresh, 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 right? We should not think and dwell and ponder about the things which are holding us back, but rather we should shed our rotten leaves, the brown leaves, and we should also inspire ourselves, motivate ourselves to start from the very beginning, starting with a fresh start. That's what it means. So he has juxtaposed different tones here. He's being pessimistic in the beginning when he used the word grief, and then he's heading towards optimism when he says that no, trees are not so lucky, even they grow old, and their age can be determined by those rings of grain. You can count those rings and you can tell that the tree is 100 years old or 200 years old. So they are not very different from us, even they grow old. But the one thing that we must learn from the trees is that we should learn from them how to start fresh. If we are stuck, if we are suffering or waiting in a limbo, we should know when to stop that and to start afresh. Thank you so much.